I remember the cultural value we had was to be an owner and not a renter.
Yeah, nice.
That still lives rent-free in my head.
Babba, we're so excited to have you today. Thanks so much for being on the show.
So excited. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm honored.
Yeah.
We'd like to start. Would love to hear a little bit of your background and maybe start a little bit about you growing up in Sweden to immigrant parents, and your parents didn't even speak any Swedish. They were from Chile.
It's fascinating.
Originally. Yeah. Can you share more about that experience?
Yeah, so it's funny because sometimes people are like, wait, but you said you grew up like this, and then you say this. The thing is, I grew up in so many different places. So initially, I was born and raised in Sweden to Chilean parents. Both my mom and my dad are from Chile. Sometimes people get it wrong. They think I'm half Swedish, half Chilean. The reality is, by blood, I'm fully Latina, but I grew up in Sweden, so I feel very connected to Swedish culture too. And we were part of a strange immigration experiment. So my first years were spent in a very white neighborhood where they basically were like, what happens if we put this one immigrant family, poof, here? And I still can't decide if it was, like, if that experiment was good or bad. I mean, I think in general, I feel like I turned out okay, and so maybe it's good. But it was a little traumatic being so otherized.
Yeah.
Sounds like
So that
it.
was a government program or government decision to...
Yeah, and what's really crazy about it is that, so then I grew up in this, white neighborhood where everyone is more of like a middle class, like lower middle class, but like, double income, like two working parents.
Right.
And it's like these mini townhouses. So you're like very close to your neighbors. You basically share a backyard with a neighbor, and our neighbors thought we were super weird. And I mean, kind of rightfully so. We were very different, at least. Like, I don't know if I would say we were weird, but we were different.
Yeah.
We always had so many guests, and we were always playing salsa. And it was always...
That's amazing.
An asado. Like, there was always, a barbecue with way too many people in our tiny, tiny backyard. And so they built a fence to, like,
Wow.
Rude.
separate the backyards. And it was fascinating. But then we had other, Swedish neighbors who were fascinated by our exotic nature. And there was this woman, she would join all of our salsa parties, and her daughter would do sleepovers in our house and basically, take bath time with me and all my beauty products that I had already since a child. So that was an interesting experience. But the craziest part was that then that program ended.
Wow.
So when I was 8, the program was no longer funded, which meant we couldn't afford to stay there. So then we moved to the ghetto.
Wow.
They just like dropped you just like that?
Yeah.
Okay, that is traumatizing.
How did your parents even land in Sweden originally?
Yeah, so during the Pinochet dictatorship in Sweden, there was a little bit of a wave of social democrats, like political refugees coming from Chile. And they ended up in Sweden because the Swedish prime minister was very friendly with Allende, who was in power in Chile before the dictatorship, before Pinochet took over. So, there was a little bit of a Chilean community coming into Sweden. I don't think my parents would have looked at the world globe and been like, Sweden, where it's cold and dark, let's definitely go there.
Go for the opposite.
It was not by choice. It was more like, okay, this is a place where we can safely go. It was definitely not easy for my parents to... Like, on paper, Sweden was great because, free education and very safe and great place to raise children. But for my own parents' mental health and, self-esteem and sense of community was really, really tough. Swedish is one of the hardest languages to learn. I was reading that it's harder than Mandarin.
Yeah.
So my parents to this day don't speak any Swedish. It's like,
and they still live there?
They still live there,
Wow.
And they, the culture of being Swedish versus Latino could not be more opposite.
Totally, yeah.
It's like Latinos will kiss you on the mouth and Swedes need their space. And Swedish people are on time, and if they're going to have you over, they want to know 3 weeks ahead of time so that they can count the meatballs to make sure that there are enough for
Yeah,
you.
totally.
You know?
Hear
And
you. I can relate.
yeah, and like Latinos are just like come one, come all.
Yeah,
and
right. We'll
like,
figure it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like and loud music. Time is just a suggestion, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Do you think that that has helped you in business building, like that sort of bringing that culture forward and that like I'll figure it out attitude? Do you think that's helped you?
I also think I have a very unique ability to connect with people from so many different walks of life.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the positive side effects of my trauma response, I think, in my upbringing is that I learned how to mirror.
Yeah.
I can be in so many different settings and basically just like enable a different setting of
Say
myself.
more about that. Like, what is mirroring? Tell people what that is.
Yeah, it's basically meeting whoever you're talking to where they are, like speaking their language. And it's almost a form of imitating. And it's kind of wild because when I speak to someone who speaks a broken Swedish, I even lower my own language. And I don't start speaking broken Swedish, but I speak a very simple Swedish.
Sure.
And it's not even a strategy. It's just a response.
Subconscious, yeah.
It's subconscious, yeah. I think it's helped me a lot in business with having grown up with certain friends who were definitely wealthier than me and sitting at their dinner table and just taking note of like how they sit, how they put the napkin on their what is it called on their lap,
Yeah, on their lap, yeah.
And how they talk around the dinner table versus in a Hispanic household where you know it's more kind of like no rules but very warm. It's like
Right,
I take inventory, right?
Yeah.
So then when I find myself in different settings, I bring tools out of that toolbox. And I feel like in business, when I was fundraising and sitting in rooms with predominantly wealthy men, I was able to bring out, another setting of myself.
Yeah. Did you know that? Like, did you know you were doing that, or have you just connected those dots later?
No, I mean, I think I'm connecting the dots literally right now.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's smart because like there are books literally that I've read that teach these strategies for fundraising specifically and just for any sort of business. But like even down to don't sit in the sunlight because squinting actually makes people suspicious of you, or make sure you mirror body language. Are they leaning in? You can lean in. Are they leaning out? You should lean out. Like things like that are actual strategies, but
it's
you
organic
just inherently and authentically
I think that's
do that.
a byproduct of my upbringing. So I am extremely grateful for it. Honestly, like when people ask me what I, wish was different or whatever, or like, I wouldn't change anything. I'm so grateful for my journey through life. And it's definitely has not been easy. I've experienced a lot of, pain, sadness, disappointment, and struggle and joy. And, but biggest of it all is the gratitude for having all those experiences.
I guess also what I hear a lot when you're talking is really you've cultivated deep empathy, which I think is such an incredible tool to have in life and in business. And the ability to put yourself into other people's shoes is actually, I think, a tool for negotiation and doesn't hinder it, even
That's
though
so
it's
true.
often perceived in that way.
Yeah, no, for sure. Being able to put yourself in other people's shoes is huge. And I think about that a lot with politics too.
Yeah.
I think we could use a little bit more of that in
Totally.
America
Yes.
today.
We were just talking about that.
Yeah, we have such a divide. And even for me, like I know where I stand on the political spectrum, but I wouldn't go as far to be like, oh, everyone who voted for Trump is stupid. Like, no, like I can put myself in their shoes and like I can, borrow their glasses for a minute and just like try to understand.
Yeah.
I wish we had a little bit more of that, like, oh, let me like sit in your chair for a second because, and I practice this a lot with my kids. My husband and I would call it the most generous interpretation. Like when your kids do something, like they're not evil people, right? Like they made a mistake, and maybe they knew what they were doing, but like what's the most generous interpretation you can apply in navigating that situation? And I wish adults did that more to each other.
That is amazing.
Yes.
That's more along the lines of observing without judgment, which I try to practice too. It's to practice.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean,
sure.
it's hard.
It is. It's
I'm like,
very
I'm not judging.
I know. I'm observing. Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. So then share a little bit more about your path forward. So you actually started working for Uber in Sweden. You were one of their early employees there, helped them launch. And then that brought you to New York. Can you share a little bit more about that piece?
Yeah. I mean, wild journey because I think I was like 20 or 21 maybe when I joined Uber. But
How old was Uber at the time?
I mean,
It was pretty young,
It
right?
must have- yeah.
Yeah.
When did Uber start? 2010? Or was it earlier
yeah,
than
this
that?
was probably
Babba would know.
2012 or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
2013.
Okay.
Yeah, it was definitely early on. Yeah, this was 2012, end of 2012. And this was one of the first international markets. So there was not like a set playbook necessarily for Uber had a playbook in the US. They knew how, why customers were choosing Uber and how to grow their customer base. And when they went into new cities, they could have sort of like replicate that playbook. And then they wanted to start doing that internationally. And they chose Sweden as one of the early markets, I think because the risk profile was quite low.
Sure.
Sweden is a deregulated market when it comes to the taxi or transportation industry. Whereas New York is like highly regulated.
Right.
So just to put in comparison. So it seemed, I think, seemingly simple at first. And then Sweden is a small enough country where they could like beta test, I guess.
Sure.
And also we had a high penetration of smartphones and sort of like a pretty tech savvy consumer in Sweden. So that's why they chose Sweden. Why they chose me is another question. I joke that I was probably the only one naive enough to take the job.
Really?
Like I honestly, I don't think that I was probably the first person that they offered their role to. I think I was just the only one crazy enough to say yes.
Were you looking for a startup job? Like, how did you even apply for that role?
So I wasn't actually looking. I was, I smile when I think about 20-year-old Babba because, like, what a cutie. Like, I was so confident.
That's awesome.
When there is a beauty in you only know what you know.
Totally.
Yes.
Totally.
And there is like a cusp where you first think the world is like the size of your hand and you get to know a lot and you're like, oh my God, I know so much.
Yes.
And then you realize that, the hand is just like one part of this giant world, which is your entire body. But you don't know that when you still live in the hand. I don't know if this analogy is making any sense.
Yes,
but-
Totally, it does.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I thought I was the shit, excuse my language, but like
Didn't we all?
Yeah, I was like, digital marketing, got it. Tech, got it. Like I was like, communications, check. So super confident, really sort of like, white male energy, in a brown 20-year-old little Latina girl in Sweden. And I was starting an agency in my mind, and I was going to help companies with their digital marketing because I was so good at that.
Amazing.
And I think because I was networking a lot to gain customers for this imaginary agency, I started to get my name out there a lot, just like through networking.
Nice.
And I had, a few little case studies here and there. And so the Uber team, they sent out, they called them launchers, who were like people from
Right.
the US who would go to different markets to find a local team and set up an office, get them off the ground, and then go to the next market. That was
Nice.
like the strategy. So this launcher, Megan, kept getting my name from people. And she's like, okay, so who is this Babba? It seems like someone we have to meet, because whenever they were discussing Uber with people, everyone was like, you should meet Babba.
That's amazing.
And they meet me and they're like, interesting. You have no credentials. And I initially took the meeting thinking they could be a potential client.
Sure.
And then I quickly learned that Uber did not work with any agencies. They believed in everything in-house. They want
Right.
everything to be, institutional knowledge. And as they were talking about Uber, I just found myself being so excited. And it
Interesting.
went from me being, this like, I have it all figured out, like, you should be lucky to be meeting with me, to being like, how do I get this job? Like, I got
Amazing.
obsessed and I created this insane strategy for how to land the job. I was basically I basically realized that I am super young and I have no credentials, but I really want this job, and I have to prove to them that I can make shit happen.
Right.
So they were visiting from abroad. I was like, what are you guys doing tonight? And they're like, oh, we have no plans. Where should we go? We don't know Stockholm. And I was like, why don't you let me show you guys around?
God, I love it.
Yeah.
You were 20
Yes.
and you're just like, let me show you around, Uber people.
Exactly. And then I call every favor in the universe. I literally call a friend to ask a friend of a friend if they can put us up on the list here, and then another friend to tell his bartender friend to please pretend to know me when I go up to the bar. And I literally pull all the strings that I can by asking friends of friends of friends for favors. And the result was that we had an awesome night out in Stockholm where I just like skipped the line to every club, walked in, got free drinks, got everyone super drunk. And I mean, this is like, pre they like being politically correct at work era.
Right. Yeah.
So remember
Yeah.
that being drunk at work was like totally
fine,
appropriate.
yeah.
Totally appropriate. This is like the early days of startups. So I kind of think I landed the job through that.
I mean, you were doing the job already.
Honestly,
That's what they needed you to do.
To be fair, like they felt like, oh, here is someone who will just like break through walls
Yes.
to
Go,
get to the right
above
people.
and
Yes.
beyond.
And when
Yeah.
you're launching something like Uber, you
Yeah.
just really need to get into the fabric of like the scene.
Where
Yeah.
did that intuition come from? Because the little that I know about your story now sounds like you had to overcome a lot of obstacles as a kid. But you also had disconfidence and intuition and knowing what to do. Were your parents entrepreneurs? Like, where did you know? Okay, so how did that develop?
I know, honestly, it definitely did not come from my parents. Like, I think my parents' lack of all of this forced me to create certain tools in my toolbox,
Yeah.
right? Because I was always standing on my own two legs. Like, if I wanted to sign up for soccer, it was on me to fundraise for it, to pay the tuition, and to
Right.
find someone to drive me there. Like self-motivated
Yeah.
was just the name of the game.
Yeah.
If I didn't have the motivation, I would just be home on the couch. So I got that from home, I think, like by accident. But the other part, honestly, I got from my husband, now husband. At the time, we were just dating, and he's like, if you think I'm insane, you should meet him. Like, he's just like also very like dream big.
Yeah.
And I think he was fascinated by my, confidence and potential, and really fueled that fire.
Interesting.
I love that.
So I remember being like, oh, like I want to get this job, and do you think you could ask your friend if they could put us on the list? And then he's like, yes, and you know what? You should then also take them to this bar, that is like the speakeasy one. And I'm like, oh, but how will I get in there? And and he just like kept fueling it.
Amazing.
You need like that. And I have some friends like that still, especially founder friends, where we're like each other's like the Lulu
Cheerleaders.
partners.
Yeah. I love it.
It's like, you think that's crazy, I have an even crazier idea, you know?
Yeah.
I love that.
That's
so you guys
amazing.
met in Sweden?
Yeah.
Is he Swedish?
Yeah.
Or, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, that's
okay,
amazing.
so you take this job at Uber
Yeah.
and you launch Uber in Sweden. And then how did that bring you to New York?
Yeah, so Uber Sweden became one of the fastest growing launch markets for Uber. In part because I did really cool things, sure, but also like, again, Sweden had a high penetration of smartphones. I think it was also like a market where early adopters were receptive to it. But what I did in Stockholm that we had never done at Uber at the time was really to create a brand. In other markets, Uber was all about getting you safely from point A to point B. In Sweden, you're able to get from point A to point B safely with regular taxi. Like,
Right.
taxis were not a problem. They were just not cool.
Yeah.
So I was like, in order for people to download this app and try something new, it needs to be the cool way to get around. So I did this like photo shoot, and like it was like, part of the nightlife, part of the fashion week, and really created like a world around it. And so that, I think, stood out, and that eventually led to a relocation for me to the New York office to be head of fashion partnerships.
Interesting.
Yeah, and initially started with fashion partnerships and became just like partnerships at large. But
Nice.
yeah, we did weird things like Bobby Brown being in the back of an Uber giving makeups on demand during Fashion Week, and like
That's
stupid
so
things.
cool.
I wonder if you were at Uber. So my first job in New York was at this on-demand chef service platform called Kitchen Surfing, and we did a partnership with Uber in the Hamptons. I don't know if you might have been part. It was like 2013, 14. Were you still at Uber?
Yeah, this sounds familiar.
Yeah.
We did a ton of like partnerships in the Hamptons.
Yeah, we had these chefs go from like one home to the next and have these fancy dinners, and Uber was just
getting
a
started
few
there.
years
Yeah.
old,
Yeah.
exactly, and just that's so funny. Maybe we crossed paths and we didn't even know.
I spent a lot of summers in the Hamptons during those days, doing silly little partnerships.
Yeah. Well, so on Say More, we've discovered that the best ideas rarely come when you're distracted, uncomfortable, and not fully present in your body. It's nearly impossible to hear that inner voice when you're wrestling with your clothes, especially ones that are made of plastic and that don't breathe. By the way, 60% of today's clothing is made from plastic. That's why I founded the big favorite, super soft, 100% Pima cotton tees, underwear, and other essentials for men and women. They're simple, well-made, and designed for fit and comfort, sure to become a new favorite, so you can focus on the things that matter, like letting a good idea hit. Shop basics and underwear at thebigfavorite.com and use SayMore15 for 15% off your first purchase. What was your favorite thing and least favorite thing about being at Uber?
I truly loved my time at Uber. And it's people always want the tea. They're like, so how was it being at Uber? Because you read all these things, right? But I wasn't sexually harassed, so like there's that. I think for if anyone who had that experience, obviously that must have been a very different experience. But I just really loved the fast-paced environment. I love that we all got to operate as little mini founders.
That's cool.
I remember the cultural value we had was to be an owner and not a renter.
Yeah, nice.
That still lives rent-free in my head. Like being an owner, not a renter. I think about it when I hire people. I think about it when I hire babysitters. I live by that motto, and I love that about Uber. And it made my time there so much more enjoyable because
Amazing.
you're owning.
Yeah.
And we also got compensated with equity, so we actually also were owners.
Yes.
In a a way. Least favorite. Towards the end, the internal politics.
Yeah.
And I think now I could have probably handled it better, like with the experience I have now. Yeah. But I was so young and so, in the drama that internal politics became so all-consuming and everything felt so personal and everything was a personal attack. And, and it was a lot of like, oh, so-and-so gets their way because they know so-and-so in the company, and you have to like negotiate a lot internally to get projects through, and like I hated that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's when
tough.
I left. It started to just get like very like
Political.
Political.
Very political.
So that I hated. Again, I think I was also just probably not mature enough to know how to navigate that.
Yeah. So there's something interesting, like up until this point in our chat, that I am sort of extracting, where you're so good at like backing into key insights about things and then using that and exploiting that to your advantage. And you kind of asked the question about intuition and where that came from. But I want to ask, like, if you've ever put that together, and if you've ever, because I know you're a strategist by nature, right? And like typically that is a strategist's superpower. And I'm curious if you view that as one of your superpowers, and like if that's something that you like really enjoy and like get out of either business or just life or whatever.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah.
First and foremost, that's such a compliment. I do therapy once a week.
Yes, amazing.
I've been
love
doing
that.
that for 5 years, and I feel like it's something that I really perfected over that, of the course of those years, where you're just being a little bit more reflective.
Yeah.
And life is not just a series of coincidence. Like certain things, keep appearing in your life for certain reasons, and there's always something to learn, and I just realized that I was able to enjoy life so much more when I put myself in the learner seat
Yeah.
versus in the know-it-all seat.
Amazing.
So I think I really I enjoy connecting the dots around things and turning them into a learning and always seeking the silver lining, even when it's hard.
Like, say more about, I think what you're referring to is synchronicities, maybe. Do you want to talk about that or expand on that?
Everything really does happen for a reason in a way, and we are usually just a little bit too much in our head versus our bodies to fully understand what our true path should be. And for myself, I was really busy trying to quote unquote make it, right? I did not want to end up like my parents. They struggled to make ends meet. They were not integrated into society. My mom never achieved independence. Her world was always sort of like limited by the idea that you need a man to do X, to do that. She doesn't have a driver's license. She needs a man to drive her to the grocery store, right?
Yeah.
So I just took inventory of that and being like, I don't necessarily like judge her, but I know that I don't want that for myself. Right. And she also taught me from an early age how us kids, she has 3 kids, are her greatest joys, but she also simultaneously feel like she went into motherhood a little like prematurely.
Sure.
And it's really hard to rebuild that part of your life after the fact when you have multiple kids at your hip, right? So I think I was very focused on building independence before I would add dependence.
Happiness. Yeah, sure.
I mean, it's interesting though, because you do have 4 kids now, so it's really impressive to see how you've been able to really lean into your ambitions and desires when it comes to your career, but then also you don't just have 1 kid, you have 4. So you really also committed to being a parent and a mom. Sorry to interrupt and jump in here, but it's just an insight that came to me.
Well, we're going to get to that too. Yeah, because we want to talk about that as well. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I think I spent my early adulthood just running away from my family in a way and my culture, and I think I needed that. It definitely served me, which can be a little bit of the sad truth. I moved to Stockholm. My family was in the south of Sweden, and I think that separation was needed for me because there was a lot of struggle and pain around my family. We just struggled financially so much, and money was just always this like thing that was always hindering us. So I really grew up with this limiting belief that money was going to solve everything. But also because we don't have money, we can almost like resign and lean back and be like, yeah, we can't.
Right.
Sure.
So I was very focused on making sure that wasn't my reality. So I went very far in the other end of the spectrum of, I was an A student. I was, best in my class. I was always trying to, just be the best because then maybe I would have a shot.
Sure.
And I felt that my starting point was at a disadvantage.
Right.
I remember even in school where they would have assignments and they would have certain questions where I was like, but that was not even in the book. And they're like, oh no, but everyone knows that, World War II or whatever. And I'm like, well, I don't, because no one taught me history at home. Yeah. We don't even have a newspaper at home. Like, how would I, like, I was like, that's unfair.
Yeah.
I was like, it needs to be in the book or it can't be on the exam. So I just always felt like I had this disadvantage and I didn't have someone who could help me with my homework, etc. But then I realized that going very far on the other end of the spectrum of running away from my family, my culture, was all meant to be. It was part of my journey, and it acquired me all these skills of, again, mirroring people from different walks of life, while still having empathy for where I come from and people like my parents. And then I feel like with Ceremonia, it is all coming full circle, where I now have this tool that is filled with, I have this toolbox that is filled with so many tools from different parts of my life and my experiences, and they're all making so much sense.
Right.
So instead of going the traditional like beauty route, I went into tech and startups. And that is giving me an unfair advantage today in beauty, in the sense that I know how to grow something quickly. I know how to be a disruptor. I know how to turn something from nothing to something. And I don't follow the rule book.
Amazing.
Because in startup, there is no such thing,
Yeah.
right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And was that a choice to do that in New York? When I hear you speak, I can relate to a lot of pieces of, running away from your family and needing to get really far. And New York felt like liberating to me to be here, because it's such a unique place with so many different people that think in different ways, and it's so creatively energizing, and it feels like freedom. Was that a choice for you to move here ultimately and build your business here and build your family here and raise your kids here? Or
that was not like part of the plan. It sort of like just evolved into that. But when I first moved to Stockholm, I was like, okay, I found home. Like Stockholm was the first time I met people who had more sort of like multicultural facets to themselves. But then I started working for an American company, and I always want to be the best. And to be the best, I can't be in a tiny satellite office in a small country called Sweden, right? Like I need to be closer to where the big things are happening. So that motivated me to move to New York. And I think initially I thought it was going to be this, adventure, and we'll do that for a couple of years. But I freaking love New York with every bone of my body. There is just something so magical about this place, and it slaps you in the face. It will chew you up alive.
Yes.
But it also has so much opportunity.
Yeah.
And my multicultural background, I think, for the first time, just really came home here.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one is
Totally.
from New York. I
Totally.
mean, some people, but like majority are not. And even the people that are from New York, they have, so many different connections to the world. And so I feel so at home here. And I think that's ultimately that feeling of home and safety and being accepted for who I am fully without having to assimilate is what eventually created the foundation for me to go back to my roots, which eventually formated Ceremonia.
Yeah.
But I don't think Ceremonia could have happened for me in Sweden.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. Well, let's get into Ceremonia. I loved hearing you talk about this insight that you had before starting the company about how there really was no like hair care, and it was all just like very chemically and very like it would help you for a day, and then your hair would go back to just being even worse than it was before. So I want to talk about that origin story and how you came upon that insight, because I think, for this podcast, we really love to talk about how people have those insights, because so often it's like, it's not in a brainstorm session. It's not in a boardroom. It's not in a P&L, it's like in a moment of
Life.
Exactly. Like human divinity, right? And you just are struck with something. So I would love to hear the origin story.
Yeah, for sure. So the origin story really was my own hair journey. I grew up with a hairdresser dad. My dad was actually a hairdresser back in Chile. So I grew up with a very healthy relationship to hair at home. He would give me scalp massages, he would braid my hair, and he treated it as if it was gold.
Wow.
Which I thought was so embarrassing at the time. And I was like, oh my God, Dad, don't do this in front of my friends. And stop asking my friends if they want their hair braided. You're embarrassing.
I wish my dad did this.
So yeah, now I'm like, wait, that was fantastic. But at the time, when you're an immigrant kid trying to be like everyone
Assimilate.
else.
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening for me was that I basically spent all of my teenage years frantically damaging my hair. I did not want my dad to use any of those embarrassing natural ingredients from Latin America, and I just wanted to buy what was cool.
Yeah.
And what was cool? Well, whatever the magazines were telling you. And when I opened the magazine, there was no one that looked like me. Everyone had straight hair, most of the time blonde hair. So the messages that I was being fed with was basically that beauty and cool equaled something different than what I naturally had. So what did I do? I went out to try to change. So I spent so many years, over a decade, bleaching it, straightening it on the daily. And I would blow dry it and then straighten it. And then I would pack a mini straightener in my purse and do straightening touch-ups. And you can just imagine, like, this is just like fire on your hair multiple times a day.
Yeah. Wait.
And also on your identity
I
in
know.
many ways.
I know. Wait, I just want to clarify. You bleached your hair?
Yeah.
My God.
Not like platinum blonde,
Okay,
but
okay,
like
okay.
very like light brown.
Okay,
But let's be fair, orange.
I was trying to.
I will
was
send you
trying to,
photos
like,
and you can,
Please,
like,
we do
trying
want
to visualize,
photographic
like,
evidence.
Baba with bleached blonde hair.
We have
like,
to include it in the podcast because like my biggest pet peeve is when people are like, oh, but you have great hair. That's easy for you with those products. But me on the other hand, I'm like, no, guys, the reason my hair is healthy is because of Ceremonia.
Right,
like you should see what the hair looked like before. So it was all orange, frizzy, burnt, and
You have to give us a picture of this.
Oh, I will.
Okay, good. Okay.
And they were like, and it was so dry.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, I hate my hair. Like, what happened? And the only solution that I could find was more hair damage.
Right.
Wow.
It was basically like, oh, frizz control, here is an anti-frizz cream. You look at the ingredients. The first ingredient is a silicone, which is a drying ingredient that actually creates more dryness and more frizz over time. But for a brief moment, it gives the illusion of shine.
Yeah.
But it's just the plastic of the silicone that gives the illusion of shine when it reflects the light. And I was like, this system is broken.
Yeah.
Like that was, I think, my biggest like aha moment where I was like, okay, here I am. I'm willing to spend money. I'm willing to like do whatever it takes to restore and rebuild my hair. And the solutions I'm offered is the equivalent of concealer on a pimple.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
Band-Aids.
I'm not, right?
Band-Aids.
I'm not gonna treat the pimple with concealer. Like I can hide it for a brief moment, but it's not gonna treat it. So
All right, so insurance is not exactly the sexiest topic, but when you need it, you really need it.
Oh my God, girl. Yes. When I was running Loopy, I had more than enough horrible claims to deal with. But thank God for Amelia Risk.
Thank
they
God.
were amazing. They
were.
picked up my phone calls, listened to me crying, and they had really good rates too.
So if you're a founder, you already have enough to stress about. So let Amelia Risk handle all of your insurance claims while you focus on your purpose and aligning that with your business.
That's right. And for all Say More listeners, you can get a free audit. So just go to ameliarisk.com because boring things like insurance should still be really good.
I kept asking myself, where is the skincare of hair care?
Yeah.
Like, is that too much to ask for?
Yeah.
How about just the care aspect of hair care? It's called hair care after all.
Yeah.
So that's what initially sparked the idea for Ceremonia. As I was on this hair journey myself, I was desperate to step out of the hamster wheel of hair damage, and I just wanted to restore and rebuild and get the best version of my own natural hair.
Wow. I love that. I want to, because I know we have a little bit of a limited time here, but I really want to use that to segue into a bit more of what I and some others refer to as the heroine's journey, where you took a period of time in your life where you went inward, and that you have said that you found all of the answers were inside you. You just had to slow down. And I think it's a beautiful kind of parallel to what you have created with Ceremonia. And I'd love for you to share that story if you have some time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I, this was now 5 years ago. I very suddenly lost my brother. It was a complete surprise to everyone in the family. And he had struggled with mental health and addiction and eventually took his life. And I think when you hear that, you think that, oh, he was sad and miserable and then he took his life. Like, that was not at all the case. He was sober. He was happier than ever. We thought we had turned a corner. He had been to rehab. And then he passed away. So it was a complete shock, and it just totally shook us all up. And for me, there is a before and there is an after. Like, my life was never the same after that incident. And it really, I mean, when people have traumatic experiences, it really makes you question everything. I remember walking with my dog out on the street, and I would see people, like rushing to work or whatever. And I was like, what's wrong with everyone? Like, why are they rushing? Anton passed away. Like, obviously that doesn't matter to,
Yes.
John Smith on the street here. But like, to me, my whole world had collapsed, and other people just seemed to keep running as usual. And they were stressing about things that were clearly nothing to stress about.
Sure.
So it puts things into perspective. And that embarked me on a spiritual journey. I started practicing wellness for the first time, truly. Wellness to me before was stressing to a massage appointment and then going back to work. Like that was like, check, wellness.
Right.
And now I physically couldn't get out of bed. I physically couldn't think. I physically couldn't open emails. So it forced me to slow down. And I started therapy. I started doing acupuncture on a weekly basis. And I was very committed to healing myself. I did not want to get medication. I did not want to numb myself. I just wanted to feel and heal myself. I remember I quit alcohol. I quit coffee. I was like, I'm going to quit everything that's like rubbing my system. And through that journey, I also connected with a clairvoyant. And I actually see her like twice a year. She's almost become like a spiritual coach to me. And through this journey, I really realized how I was technically not doing anything. For 2 months, I was not able to work. Yet I made the most progress possible internally. And I am someone who has been addicted to being productive. And I realized that slowing down was actually the most productive thing I could do. What a novel concept. And it was through this journey that I started to eventually sort of like find back to my roots, reconnect with my heritage, also reconnect with my family in a more meaningful way, because we were all sharing this pain. And I found a lot of meaning in creating something that was a celebration of my culture, because for the longest time I had been running away from my culture, and I felt ashamed for being immigrant, and I felt ashamed for my parents speaking Spanish. And I realized that the reason for that was because there was no representation of Latin culture in an aspirational, badass way. Like the only representation we had in Hollywood were either we were mistresses, like Eva Longoria in Desperate Housewives, or we were drug dealers. And I was like, there's so much more to us than that. And then when you look at beauty, we're obsessed with beauty. I mean, my mom is a living proof of that. Without any money, somehow we still had no shortage of beauty products. Yet there is little to no representation of Latin culture in the beauty aisle, which is bonkers, because we have so many passed down rituals, so many powerful ingredients, and that needs to be shared with the world. The only thing that's holding this back is the perception of Latin culture being less. So I'm on a personal mission to really share the richness of Latin culture and putting it on the world map. And that's why Ceremonia to me means so much more than a good hair day. Like, yes, it helped me restore my hair. The products are phenomenal. They work. But I'm on a bigger mission than so. And I also firmly believe that minority-founded brands tend to be pigeonholed into a category of only being able to serve their own little minority group. And I really will not rest until Ceremonia puts Latin culture on the world map for the world. So we pride ourselves in having more than half of our customers not identifying as Hispanics.
I was gonna say you're in
included.
this white girl.
But you were raving about the dry shampoo and the hair oil. And I mean, I grew up in Sweden. All my Scandi friends use it, right? Like, and actually we do really well in Australia and in France.
Amazing.
And it's not because of a big Latin community. So I really am on a mission to share the richness and the all the flavors that my culture has to offer and sharing it with the world.
So incredible. I know.
We have like 1 minute left.
I know.
Should
I'm
we
like, I
do
have so
the-
many questions.
I know there's so many more questions. We will definitely have to have you back for
definitely.
another
Part
interview.
Part two.
But maybe do the rapid fire questions.
that sounds good.
So we have 4 quick rapid fire questions for you. So after everything you just shared, I think I have some answers for this question, but we'd love to hear from you what you would say is your life's purpose.
My life's purpose is to be an expander to other people.
What matters the most to you in life?
My daughters. Cliche, but I am obsessed with every single one of them.
Definitely a topic we wanted to
I
touch
know,
on,
I
but we will
know,
talk
I
about
know.
next time.
You've got to
Motherhood.
you've got to help dispel our limiting beliefs around having
Motherhood.
children.
Yeah,
and
being a
well,
career woman. I mean, that can be an episode in itself.
Yes.
That
We're gonna have you back to talk
Yes,
about that.
we will. What is your definition of success and why?
my definition of success is feeling abundant.
And what are you currently reading or listening to or watching?
I am currently watching Common Side Effects.
Okay.
Have you seen
Oh, I
that?
don't know this.
Tell
No.
us.
It's a very silly show on HBO, I think, about the big pharma industry,
Okay.
Oh,
but
wow.
it's made in cartoons.
This sounds incredible.
sounds amazing.
It's like South Park type style,
Yeah.
but like about big pharma and like these like mushroom guy. No, it's hilarious. It's so
Amazing.
good.
We'll watch it.
And then I'm reading The Tao of Founders. One of my angel investors wrote this book, and it's a very like short book about the roller coaster that it is to be a founder. And honestly, there's so many founder books, but this one just really hit home for me. It's about how resilient you have to be. And I have had a very difficult, last year was really difficult. I was pregnant with my twins. I was on bed rest. I had to restructure my board. I had to fundraise, and the financial climate was shit. And, I'm coming off a very difficult year. So that book has been just like such a respite, I think, of reading about what it actually means to be a founder.
Great. We'll add it to
can't
our
wait to-
reading list.
Yeah, I can't wait to read that one.
This was amazing. so
Babba,
much more to
thank
talk about.
you.
Thank you so much
guys.
for being
I really
here.
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.